Good morning. I'm with White Gold, VP of Exploration, Dylan Langille. Good morning, Dylan. How are you?
Morning, Robert. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. So you're a younger, geo, not um, the age that we always see in a junior mining company. So it's nice to see a fresh face. I understand that you worked with Great Bear for several years. Why don't you tell us about how you got into the industry and the story of Great Bear?
Yeah, sure. I'm very fortunate to have worked with some really great teams, some really intelligent geologists and leaders in the exploration industry, namely being Great Bear. I was with that company for 7 years. I started back in January of 2019 on what was supposed to be actually a 1 month contract. I got the phone call saying that they were testing a second drill rig and wanted to know if I wanted to come up to Red Lake and do some core logging. So I took that opportunity. And in May of that year, we had stepped back and drilled into the Fells Lake volcanics and made that discovery. It was DNW 11. And I think that intercept was over 750 grams per ton. So that was a pretty game changing moment. The senior geologist and exploration manager at the time in the core shack were quite excited when they saw the gold in the core, and things kind of exploded from there. So a lot of people are familiar with the Great Bear story. Kinross ended up acquiring it in February of 2022. I stayed on with Kinross. I joined that group through acquisition. And from there, our mandate was just to grow the deposit as quickly as possible and make it as big as possible. So spent the last 3 years drilling over 350,000 meters and growing the Great Bear resource estimate. Prior to that, I was in Red Lake as well. I had worked for a company called Premier Gold Mines on the Hisega Gold porphyry project. And then prior to that, I had some other opportunities in Quebec. And actually, my first job was in the Yukon. So it's kind of full circle moment here.
So are you in the Yukon right now?
I am, yeah. I'm out at site. I'm in our office tent.
So you're at the White Gold project right now?
Yeah, I'm out at Thistle camp.
Oh, Thistle. Okay, yeah. So I was at Thistle in 2019 during the summer. We went and saw that. It's a pretty nice camp. The food was pretty good.
Yeah, it's a unique spot to be for sure. Sitting on top of the old tailings from dredging all the plasters and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of placer mining there. So with Great Bear, you spent a lot of time with Great Bear. Actually, I don't, and then to join the Kinross team for 3 years afterwards. So I guess that there was a natural transition that took place in the last year where they've drilled so much, they've got a resource. It's already, what, 10 million ounces, and they're getting ready to, I guess, permit and build a mine there. So it was kind of natural for you to move on to another company that is in the exploration stage. So tell us, what did you learn with Great Bear that you can take and apply at White Gold?
I think one of the biggest things I learned from being at Great Bear is to really do your due diligence on historic data and drilling and make sure you're really kind of combing through all the details. Part of that story with Great Bear, with the hinge and limb zone was just, the location of collar coordinates, stuff as small as that, just verifying stuff like that. Um, doing a whole core sampling from top to bottom until you really understand the deposit and where the gold mineralization can be. I think that can be applied everywhere. But really, it's just about doing quality exploration work and collecting every piece of data you can until you truly understand a mineral system. I think that's the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, every piece of data you can to better understand what you're exploring and what the potential is. So at White Gold, a company that I've actually followed for over 5 years now, it always seemed like the White Gold project had more potential. It was like, for a time, it was a resource of like 1.7 million. Then it went a little bit above 2 million. Well, now the resource is up to about 3 million ounces. So it's starting to really achieve some scale with the update you guys put out last month. So tell us what you've learned about the White Gold project and the potential to grow it even further.
Yeah, there's a few things that go into that and why I'm really excited about White Gold. Obviously, the asset base with Gold Saddle and ARC was in a foundation. We've got ounces in the ground, and we did just take it to 3 million ounces. And a lot of that came from a remodeling exercise where there was improved confidence in our mineralization wireframes. Gold price obviously helps. We lowered the cutoff grade a bit to 0.3 grams per ton, which allowed us to capture some mineralization in drill holes that were not previously being captured. One of the most exciting things I learned about the Gold Saddle deposit, though, is the high-grade core that exists. So it's 3 million ounces at 1.4 grams per ton. But when you look at the high-grade core, you're looking at 1.1 million ounces at 3 grams per ton. And if you refine that to everything over 5 grams per ton, you're still looking at 700,000 ounces. And what's even more exciting about that is it appears that it potentially isn't drilled at depth along plunge. So there's definitely opportunity to grow the Gold Saddle deposit. And then you have the other satellite deposits like Ryan's Surprise and VG and ARC to the south, which are adding ounces and really have minimal drilling. So I really do think there's, a lot of potential to grow from now on forward. So I'm just looking forward to getting a bigger drill program next year and hitting the ground heavy.
Yeah, so there's Golden Saddle, there's Ryan's, there's ARC, VG. So there's 4 deposits that comprise the White Gold project. Obviously, at Golden Saddle, that's where we have the most data. And as you pointed out, 700,000 ounces at above 5 grams. That's an extraordinary core of the deposit there. What you said you're most excited about the Golden Saddle, but maybe is there room to grow at VG and ARC and at Ryan's?
Yeah, there is, and I'm smiling a bit just because since I've joined the company, I've been ultra focused on Gold Saddle and ARC because that makes up the meat and potatoes of the resource estimate. I haven't really done a deep dive on VG and Ryan's Surprise until a couple weeks ago before heading to Beaver Creek. And I took a look at VG, and the first thing I did was send messages to my team saying, guys, all the drill holes have good intercepts. Like, there's not a hole at depth or on strike that suggests that it's cut off. Why haven't we drilled this more? So yes, I do think there is opportunity to grow both of those deposits. It's just a matter of sending the drill bit through them.
Yeah, so one of the challenges that has been present for White Gold, basically since the inception, is you've got all this massive property package, the largest in the Yukon territory that any mining company holds, and just the programs are 3 months long. So how can you possibly do justice to this big project area? So I'm kind of interested in what is your focus. You've come into the company, you've looked at a lot of the data now here in 2025. You've been up there to manage the drill program. What would you like to see the company do in 2026?
You hit the nail on the head. Definitely having this amount of property presents a challenge, but I think it's a good challenge. It's an exciting challenge. Before I joined, I had definitely noticed, they had been their strategy had been to go around and do smaller drill programs on satellite properties, and they've had great technical success, really good intercepts. But like you said, 3 months and minimal budgets isn't enough time to really substantiate that. So I think it's just about coming up with a strategy. And I think that starts with near-term goals. And when I came in, that near-term goal with gold being at, $3,600 plus was to add more substance to Gold Saddle and Arc. That's where the value is, I think, in growing that deposit. And then we can focus on the pipeline of properties that comes behind that. I think also corporately, we're working on a bit of a strategy to kind of segregate some properties. I think, you're going to see a spin out here of the critical metals properties. So I think there's opportunity to really strategize kind of our portfolio and hit it a little more strategically.
Yeah, so that's an important point. So spinning out some of the copper projects and some of the other projects, I think you have a zinc project too, if I'm not mistaken, would give you more focus, and it would also give value to shareholders, in the form of the Spinco shares. So hopefully that will take place here over the next several months for White Gold. I think that's an important catalyst for the company. Based upon the drilling in 2025, based upon what you've seen in the drill core, what has you most excited to get back out to test in 2026?
So the 2025 drill program, the basis of that program was this high grade footwall breccia. It sits south of the main zone in Gold Saddle, and historically there was a pierce point that had hit it at depth. And the next hole above that is 275 meters away. So that to infill that mineralization panel kind of became the foundation of our drill program for this year. It's a smaller drill program. But what that's allowing me to do, being a new guy coming in, is we're drilling from the north to the south. So we'll intersect the hanging wall. We'll go through the main zone and we'll get into that footwall breccia and hopefully tie those mineralization panels together and add ounces to the resource estimate. But that gives me just a few holes that it will make a good section right across the Gold Saddle deposit. It'll give me good optics on the deposit. We're doing oriented drill core for the first time on the deposit, so hopefully that can give us some structural interpretation. So I'm mostly just excited, being out here, seeing the core and understanding the deposit a little bit better, and then next year we'll hit it with more meters and test some of these theories that I've been talking about with the high grade plunge, with the strike towards Gold Saddle West, parallel zones of mineralization, what happens with the arc zone and the Gold Saddle at depth, because they kind of plunge into one another. So there's some really interesting opportunity going forward.
Yeah, so with Golden Saddle Arc and Golden Saddle West, you basically have three, deposit areas all along a trend. They're basically adjacent to each other. There's a little bit of separation. So showing continuity there would be very important and could add a lot of value, I think, to the project. How many meters do you need to drill in 2026, Dylan? Like, what kind of a budget are you going to ask for? I mean, obviously, you're a geo, so you want as much budget, as much drilling as possible. But what's your reasonable target?
Yeah, that number keeps growing the more I look at all the deposits and the satellite properties. But I think, a reasonable request this year has been 20,000 meters to tackle the resource growth.
Got it. And so now after working at Great Bear for so many years, what 10 million ounces, looks like. Is the potential here at the White Gold project that there could be 10 million ounces in the ground?
I think we're a long ways right now off 10 million ounces, but I'll never say never. With these orogenic gold systems, we're only drilled off to 500 meters vertical. In the grand scheme of things, that's quite shallow. So we'll see. There's lots of opportunity to continue drilling this thing and adding ounces. So, I mean, I hope one day we can say we've gotten to 10 million ounces.
Final question, Dylan. So obviously you've been focusing at the White Gold project here in 2025, but I'm sure you've looked through the project portfolio. What's the next one in the pipeline that has you most intrigued?
That's a great question. I haven't been asked that yet. Right now, I would say it's the Bridget Target on the Pedler property, which is actually our critical metals stream of properties. But it's got some really nice soil geochemistry anomalies, copper moly signatures that aren't just like small streaks on the map. It's broad scale, 3 kilometers by 3 kilometers, and it sits roughly 35 kilometers northeast of Casino. So we've just completed IP geophysics on that property. So we should see some results from that soon. And I'm excited to see what that looks like in terms of getting it ready for a drill.
So that's in a porphyry trend, and it sure as hell looks like a porphyry target to me. So I'm super excited to see more data from that one.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited about it.
All right. Thank you, Dylan. I appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, no, thanks for having a chat with me, Robert.
Cheers.